A federal defamation case in Denver is about to test the claims that Dominion voting systems based here rigged the 2020 election. First, though, a judge had to find 8 Coloradans who can give MyPillow guy Mike Lindell a fair trial. Our Marshall Zellinger is down at the downtown courthouse, federal court, covering this trial, focused on whether the claims made by Lindell and echoed by President Donald Trump are true. And Marshall, tell us how they vetted jurors for this highly watched trial.
The jurors were asked about their social media habits. They were asked how they get news, and it was kind of depressing to hear. A lot of them said they don't, or they get the headlines from a friend, family member, or a coworker. They were also asked their opinions of Mike Lindell, President Trump, and January 6th. 20 jurors were ultimately excused after being questioned. But the day was spent narrowing the jury down to 8. One juror who was dismissed said they could not be impartial because they found Lindell's political activities offensive. Another dismissed juror said that they had a positive opinion because their whole family has MyPillows. One juror who was picked had this exchange with one of the attorneys. The attorney asked, "Do you consider the January 6ers patriots?" The juror said, "Sure." "Well, why?" "Because they were doing something they stood up for." "Explain your First Amendment philosophy," the attorney asked. "Freedom of speech," said the juror. "Do you think there are limits?" And then the juror said, "I do think there are limits, anything involving treason." That juror is one of 5 men and 3 women ultimately serving on this jury. Like a moth to a flame, after court, Lindell found our camera, and after telling me I have a smug look on my face, he told me why this defamation case has no merit.
This 2020 election, I never say anything about Coomer, didn't know Joe Olman or Coomer. So this is why this is the most frivolous case that ever walked the planet Earth.
Joe Olman is the Douglas County conservative activist who said he was on an Antifa phone call where he overheard Coomer claim to have rigged the 2020 election. He's under subpoena now to show up here in federal court tomorrow. It was an interesting morning for Mike Lindell, Kyle. Court started at 8:36 and Lindell was still out here talking to the news media and the cameras that were here. The judge wanted to know if he was going to show up in court. His lawyer said, "Well, let us text him and get him in here." The judge took a recess, and as she stood up to leave, everybody else stood up, and that's the moment Lindell walked through the back doors, making it seem like he was arriving to court to an ovation.
Oh, I'm sure he loved that. This is an interesting defense, Marshall. I didn't know the guy I'm accused of defaming. I am not a lawologist, but I was not aware that that is one of the prongs that you have to satisfy for a defamation case, right? For a defamation, right, you have to say something false about somebody. You have to broadcast it. It has to do damage to the person. You have to explicitly name them. I don't think one of the prongs is like, do you know the dude?
I simply asked that question when he came over to the camera. It sounds like that's one of your defenses. Why do you think the defense for defamation is I didn't know him? I heard like a 5 to 8 minute answer that really didn't address that, Kyle, other than he says he didn't talk about Coomer. And when I asked him, did you give a platform to amplify claims about Coomer rigging the 2020 election, he kind of diverted in his answer also.
Marshall Zellinger with 2 weeks of what is either the best or the worst assignment of all time. Day 1's in the books. Thank you, Marshall.